This is Hidden Killers Week in Review.
A look back at the most prolific stories of the week.
This is the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Brueski.
Featuring defense attorney, Hidden Killers daily contributor, and host of the Defense Diaries podcast, Bob Motta.
What right now with the federal investigation, and we don't know what was, on that affidavit where they went in and what they took or why they took it. If you were to speculate, what are they looking at right now? Who are they talking to behind the scenes as they're building this case?
Well, they're going to have CIs. So confidential informants for the feds is who they're talking to. And usually they get, and it could be the source of that CI could be anything. Like they could have been picked up on a drug charge and they're getting them to turn state's evidence, or they're getting them to turn into a federal, basically confidential informant. And, they're trying to get inside intel. They're trying to get people to turn, because that's the way that the feds operate. It's like when you talk about drug cases, and I'm sure that sex trafficking type things are going to have the same thing. If you get people on the lower rungs and you get them under arrest, you're trying to work your way up the chain. So like, for instance, in big drug busts, like big federal drug busts, that's how they'll get it. They'll get the low level guys under arrest and they'll squeeze them. They'll say, well, you're looking at an awful lot of time here, buddy, unless you want to work with us. And when we say that you're going to work with us, you're going to have to give us real names. You're going to have to give us real information, and we're going to have to make sure that it all checks out. And if it does, then we're going to work with you. And they move up through the chain. So they get the next higher level person, who's not just the mule, but maybe the guy who's a local distributor, and it's like, that's how they operate. That is literally how they work their way through these cases, by getting people to flip, and people flip.
Is that why we saw the former Syracuse University basketball player Brendan Paul getting busted the other day for gummies? And
I'm sure,
I think a small amount of Coke or something, or was that pink Coke? I don't know what the hell that is, but it's not truly cocaine. It's some other substance.
No, it's this super bizarre designer drug, man, that is definitely not Coke. It's like a hallucinogenic, it's a different thing. I forget. It's got like I forget what the name of it is, but it sounds more like a chemical compound.
Yeah. Something Diddy would probably want to use a lot of right now to escape reality.
Exactly.
But yeah, they got him. And again, fairly small, but I'm guessing it's what you just said. Hey, we got you on this. We can put you away for a very long time for this, unless you want to talk to us. And I'm assuming that's the beginning of that chain going up, as we see some of his associates on the very bottom rungs getting busted left and right, but Diddy is still sitting free. Do you think, what do you think that conversation went like on the tarmac the other day when Diddy was heading out for spring break and they had his phone, they grabbed his phone from him?
From whose perspective? From Diddy's?
Just from the reality perspective, like what happened? Like what did the Fed say to Diddy that stopped him from continuing getting on that plane going for spring break? And then we're seeing him outside the airport on his phone looking very distressed.
Yeah, I'm sure it was something to the effect that, well, you may want to hold off on flying out of the country. We can't stop you at this point. However, just be aware that we're currently raiding both of your homes in Miami as well as in LA. And, we're looking, we're digging into you. You're on the radar, and, you should probably call your lawyer. This isn't a situation where you're going to want to be leaving the country, because we're going to know where you're at.
If he attempted to leave, would they be stopping him? Kind of like Donna Adelson, where it was like,
well, the difference with Donna is they had a warrant for her.
True.
You know what I'm saying? But them being aware, and again, that was a state case, not a federal case. That's again, the difference. Like as soon as they became aware from her idiotic phone calls with Charlie talking about how she's going to go to Vietnam, it's like they knew they had to stop her before she got out.
Yeah.
So that's why they ran in, issued the arrest warrant, and then snatched her up at the airport because they saw it coming. With this, they couldn't have stopped him. They couldn't have stopped his movement. Like there was no short of having him placed under arrest. That would have been the only way to do it. Like the federal government can't like stop us from going places. Even if you're under an investigation, you're not under arrest. You're free to move until such time that you're not. And, but I'm sure that they gave him what they felt was sage advice. Look, something's coming up the pike here, buddy, and it's big. You might want to gather the troops and reconvene with your attorneys and prepare yourself. It's like we're not going to give you, because like he's not going to talk. He's smart enough not to talk. He's not going to say shit. Like his lawyers have drummed in his head. You don't ever say anything to the police ever. You never make a statement. Talk to my lawyer. Talk to my lawyer. Talk to my lawyer. And I'm sure that's what the conversation was coming from Diddy. And I'm sure they were just telling him, look, stay close. We got our eyes on you, buddy.
Wouldn't that be more reason for him to flee at this point?
But to where?
Well, exactly.
It's like his only hope is to go to a country with no extradition. Yeah. And even if they don't have an extradition thing, the government can still work out deals.
True.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh yeah, we got 3 of your guys over here. Well, we're willing to let these guys go because we want that dude. So let us come pick them up. So there's workarounds. It requires a lot of work, but if there's a will, there's a way. So, like when you're Diddy, that's part of the problem. When you're a kingmaker and you have all the money in the world, it's hard to hide.
True. He can't pull a Walter White and just go live in the mountains, through a tanker truck or something. It's tough. And he's so like I don't see him as a guy who can just disappear off the grid. No, he's been too on the grid, and it's like the ego thing with a guy like that is always going to be in play because, he was who he was for an awful long time, awfully powerful guy. Do you envision that we're going to see an arrest here at some point of Diddy?
I would be surprised if we didn't. Yeah. To expend that kind of resources, typically the feds think there's something there. Yeah. And that was a lot of resources that were spent on those searches and everything else that's going on with it. So this is a major case that they're trying to build.
How far down the road do you think that could take for them to actually make the arrest?
That's what I was saying, man. It could take a year, 2 years. It depends. It depends on what they have. That's like we've had federal cases. Allison and I were, somebody calls us and they'll tell us that they've had contact with the feds. May not necessarily be a raid, but they've come to speak with them and they interview them. And, they're like, oh, do we need to be worried? And I'm like, well, yeah, you're on their radar. Like there's something like, and I'm in that situation, this defense attorney that I'm never asking my clients, well, tell me what you did. Oh, yeah. Tell me, like, what laws did you break? It's like, I'm like, do you have something that you feel like you need to be concerned about? That's the question. And they'll say, well, maybe, I'm like, well, that's what they're looking into, and if there's loose ends, that's what they're going to be looking into, and they'll take time. They'll be, like I said, they're very deliberate. They're very diligent and they're in no hurry. They're going to make sure that they have a slam dunk case before they issue an arrest on a federal case. It's how it operates. So like the fact that 6, 8, 10 months goes by and there's no arrest doesn't mean anything.
It's going to be a very stressful time for Diddy between now and then. Definitely. Or if it ever happens at all, that's it's going to be watching behind his back everywhere. Wow.
For sure. Well, whatever he was up to, if he was up to these things, I imagine that it'll be curbed.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully.
Usually a federal investigation has a pretty good chilling effect on your illegal activities if in fact you're conducting them. So
all right, let's go over to Daybell quick and just touch on that as jury selection starts.
Want to listen ad-free? Want advanced access to all of our interviews before anyone else?
Become a True Crime Today Premium Plus subscriber on Apple Podcasts.
You get every episode commercial-free.
So you can binge on true crime
until you can binge no more.
Search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts now, or go to our podcast page and sign up now.
More of the Hidden Killers podcast next.